Welcome. The title of this video uses the word horrific to describe the Artemis II mission. While spaceflight involves extreme conditions, there is no need for fear. Tonight, we will look at 10 profound challenges the crew faces. We will explore these facts calmly. The reality of space is not one of horror, but of absolute stillness, careful math, and quiet bravery. Close your eyes, relax your breathing, and let us journey into the deep dark. Our journey begins by understanding the context. Artemis II represents humanity's return to deep space after more than half a century. It is a voyage taking 4 astronauts further than anyone has ever gone. While the mission profile is meticulously planned, the margins for error are incredibly slim. The universe does not accommodate mistakes. We will look closely at these stark realities, framing them not as terrors, but as monumental hurdles overcome by science. Fact 1. The controlled explosion. Fact 1 concerns the sheer violence of the launch. To escape the gravity of our planet, the Space Launch System rockets must generate immense power. The crew sits atop millions of pounds of highly combustible cryogenic propellant. During liftoff, this fuel burns in a controlled manner, creating a thrust equivalent to a small, sustained nuclear event. It is a violent, rattling ascent, but it is precisely calculated to push the heavy Orion capsule into the vacuum of space. Inside the capsule, the astronauts experience crushing physical forces. As the rocket accelerates, the G-forces multiply the weight of their own bodies, pressing them deep into their seats. Breathing becomes a conscious effort, yet the engineers have measured every vibration. The solid rocket boosters burn out and fall away quietly into the ocean. The trembling stops, replaced by the sudden, weightless glide of orbital insertion. The violent beginning ends in utter silence. Fact 2. The void of distance. Fact 2 is the immense, isolating distance from home. The International Space Station sits only a few hundred miles above our heads. The Artemis II crew, however, travels much further. They journey hundreds of thousands of miles into the void, reaching a point roughly 4,600 miles beyond the far side of the Moon. This is further than any human has ever traveled. The scale of this distance is difficult for the human mind to truly grasp. In this deep expanse, the familiar markers of day and night vanish completely. Earth appears only as a small, pale marble suspended in an infinite sea of absolute black. From their vantage point, the entirety of human history, every continent, and every ocean fits behind the space of a single thumbnail. It is a humbling, beautiful sight, but it carries the heavy psychological weight of complete detachment from the world they have always known. Fact 3. The mechanics of no return. Fact 3 is the lack of an immediate rescue option. If an emergency occurs on a low Earth orbit station, astronauts can enter a return vehicle and splash down in a matter of hours. For the Artemis crew, there is no quick return. Once they commit to the translunar injection burn, they are bound to the unyielding mechanics of orbital physics. They cannot simply turn the ship around. They must complete the long loop around the Moon before Earth's gravity brings them back. This reality means they must be entirely self-sufficient. If a critical system fails days into the journey, they cannot wait for a rescue ship. They must rely entirely on their own training, the redundancy of their life support systems, and the steady guidance of mission control transmitted across the void. They are for individuals floating in a fragile metal bubble, reliant on calm, methodical problem solving to survive any anomaly that arises in the dark. Fact 4. Beyond the magnetic shield. Fact 4 involves the invisible danger of deep space radiation. Earth is surrounded by a protective magnetic bubble called the magnetosphere. It shields our planet from the harsh radiation of the Sun and the broader galaxy. Artemis II is the first crewed mission in over 50 years to leave this safe harbor. As they pass beyond the Van Allen belts, the astronauts are exposed to a fundamentally different environment, unprotected by the Earth's natural defenses. The quiet space between worlds is filled with high-energy particles moving invisibly in the dark. These cosmic rays pass seamlessly through the hull of the spacecraft and through the bodies of the crew. Over time, this exposure can damage DNA at a cellular level. The risk is carefully managed with specialized sensors and shielding, but it is a silent, constant presence. It is a stark reminder that life evolved to exist within the thin, protected cradle of our atmosphere. Fact 5. The volatile sun. Fact 5 is the unpredictable nature of our own sun. The Artemis II mission coincides with a period of high solar activity. Occasionally, the sun releases sudden, massive bursts of plasma and energy called coronal mass ejections. If one of these silent solar storms sweeps across the spacecraft's trajectory, the crew could be exposed to acute, dangerous levels of radiation within a matter of hours. The sun is not just a source of light. It is an active, volatile star. To mitigate this, weather satellites constantly monitor the sun's surface. If an eruption is detected, the crew receives a quiet warning from Houston. They must then seek shelter inside the Orion capsule. They will construct a small, temporary safe haven by packing heavy stowage bags and materials around the central column of the ship. There, they will wait out the invisible storm, suspended in the quiet dark, while the solar wind washes harmlessly over their ship. Fact 6. The unraveling body. Fact 6 touches upon the physical degradation of the human body in space. Gravity is a constant companion on Earth, quietly signaling our bones and muscles to remain dense and strong. In the microgravity of space, this vital signal disappears. The body is highly efficient and adapts quickly to the weightless environment. Assuming that heavy bones are no longer needed, the body begins to reabsorb calcium. Muscle fibers, no longer working against gravity, begin to atrophy. Even on a relatively short 10-day mission, this physical unraveling begins immediately. The crew must carefully monitor their physical health, performing resistive exercises in the confined, floating cabin to mimic the pull of Earth. It is a slow, silent battle against their own physiology. The human form is perfectly tuned for the surface of a rocky planet, and in the deep void, it requires constant, deliberate effort to maintain its strength and structure. Fact 7. A loss of equilibrium. Fact 7 involves fluid shifts and the swelling of the body. On Earth, gravity constantly pulls the fluids in our bodies downward, and our cardiovascular system works hard to pump it back up. In space, without the downward pull, this liquid is free to redistribute. It naturally migrates upward into the chest and the head. This causes a persistent feeling of congestion, similar to a head cold, and a noticeable rounding of the face known as puffiness. This is a strange, subtle shift. The delicate pressure within the eyes can change, sometimes affecting an astronaut's vision. The brain also floats slightly differently within the skull, sometimes leading to motion sickness as the inner ear struggles to interpret the lack of gravity. The body is simply trying to find a new equilibrium in an environment where up and down have completely lost their meaning. It is a quiet, internal adaptation to the rules of a new world. Fact 8. The shadow of the moon. Fact 8 is the absolute silence of the lunar far side. As the Orion spacecraft swings around the back of the moon, a massive, 2,000-mile thick sphere of solid rock blocks all radio signals to Earth for approximately 45 minutes. Mission Control cannot hear the crew, and the crew cannot hear Mission Control. They are completely and utterly cut off from the rest of humanity. The telemetry screens in Houston will temporarily freeze in quiet anticipation. During this blackout, the 4 astronauts drift through the deep shadow of the moon entirely alone. It is a profound, uninterrupted quiet. They must trust that the automated systems and their trajectory calculations are correct. There is no one to ask for help, no voices from home to offer reassurance. They simply wait in the dark, watching the cratered grey surface pass below them, until the spacecraft emerges on the other side and the comforting static of a radio link returns. Fact 9. The kinetic return. Fact 9 concerns the immense speed of the journey home. Falling back toward Earth, the spacecraft gains tremendous momentum, pulled relentlessly by our planet's gravity. By the time the Orion capsule reaches the upper, tenuous edges of the atmosphere, it will be traveling at nearly 25,000 miles per hour. This is dozens of times the speed of sound. The transition from the frictionless vacuum of space to the thick blanket of air is abrupt and incredibly violent. The sheer speed creates an intense wall of compression ahead of the spacecraft. The air simply cannot move out of the way fast enough. The kinetic energy of their fall is rapidly converted into heat. For the astronauts inside, the quiet glide through space is replaced by the roar of the atmosphere tearing past the hull. They are essentially a falling meteorite, relying on precise angles to bleed off their speed without bouncing back into space or burning up entirely. Fact 10. The fires of re-entry. Fact 10 focuses on the extreme heat generated by this re-entry. As the capsule slams into the atmosphere, the compressed air creates a glowing, trailing wake of superheated plasma. Temperatures directly outside the window will rise to thousands of degrees, hotter than the surface of some stars. During the uncrewed Artemis I test, the heat shield experienced unexpected flaking and erosion under this immense stress, highlighting the razor-thin margins of survival. For Artemis II, engineers have carefully adjusted the re-entry path to reduce this stress. The heat shield is designed to slowly burn away, carrying the extreme temperatures back out into the wind through a process called ablation. Inside the cabin, the crew will watch the plasma dance outside their small windows, trusting their lives to a layer of specially engineered resin. It is a fiery, dramatic end to a quiet voyage, delivering them safely to the cool waters of the ocean. These 10 facts represent the physical realities of leaving our planet. They involve extreme energies, vast distances, and incredibly hostile environments. Yet, none of these things happen with malice. The vacuum of space does not feel anger. It is simply cold. The radiation is not cruel. It is just energetic. The engineers at NASA understand these profound risks. They manage them not with fear, but with careful calculations, quiet focus, and decades of gathered knowledge. As you lie awake tonight, consider the steady, methodical progress of the Artemis II mission. Think of the 4 humans drifting in the quiet dark, supported by the silent work of computers and the strength of a carbon fiber shell. Their journey reminds us of the delicate, precious nature of our homebrew world. Let the immense, quiet reality of their voyage soothe your mind. There is no horror in the stars tonight, only the gentle, persistent mechanics of our incredible universe.